All right, y'all. Kandi is speaking out. I know you guys have been seeing a lot of things. Kandi and Todd reunited for the kids, but she says they're still getting divorced. This is not a scheme, y'all. Y'all have to check out this video. I got two videos in one for you guys. All the tea about Kandi. Y'all need to know this, honey. She is speaking out. And, honey, did you know how many women that Todd cheated on her with? We're going to find out all in this video, so I need you guys to like, share, subscribe here. Let's check it out.
Sage says, how are you feeling today? Okay, Sage. I'm going to be very honest with you. I am up and down. Obviously going through a divorce is definitely not the easiest thing. Sometimes, you're cool, you know what I mean? You're moving, you're mixing, you're moving, and you're hanging out with friends. But then sometimes you have your moments of sadness, and me being the Taurus that I am, I like to keep those moments to myself. When I was on Housewives, I really couldn't keep moments to myself when I got upset, so y'all would catch me crying. But in real life, my everyday life, I don't really like for those moments to be shared with the world. So, but I am sharing with my Amazon family today. So I am up and down. And to be clear, yes, I filed Friday, but this is something that, has been brewing for a while. So all the times you've been seeing me online like, all of that means nothing. I've been going through it, y'all. I've been going through it. Life has been lifing me. Okay? Got it. Mrs. Little says, how are you holding up? Ooh, I guess as good as I can be. It's kind of hard sometimes when you see all the stuff online and, it's just, everybody is making their own narrative of what's going on. And, sometimes I'll be wanting to comment, but then I'm like, no. So I'm all over the place. Put it that way. Jay Franklin says, oh no, child, I can't answer that question. Taylor says, Kandi, you're breaking the internet. LOL, these folk want to know the tea. Clearly. Tanya says, I'm so sorry to hear this. You guys look so good together. Thank you. Well, what I will say is, Todd and I were together our marriage lasted 11 years. We were together like 14. We got 2 wonderful, beautiful children. I have no regrets, okay? So, sometimes things don't work out, and it just is what it is. Richard said, y'all so nosy. Yes, and you too, Richard, because you over here in the tea too. Ed says they just wanted to send love and healing my way. Thank you. And Michaela says, Kandi, how do you manage to do so many things? Okay. So, I just do it. I don't really know. Somebody asked me that one time, and it's like, okay, you got dreams and goals, and you got other things that you have going on, and you just figure it out. I don't know. I pull the energy from somewhere, and to be honest with you, I love doing these lives. I love performing. Doing Anne Juliet on Broadway could not have come at a better time. I honestly was starting to go through something when I even said I was going to do this, because I knew that it would push me to stay in my zone and not fall apart. I'm one of those people, like, if I, focus on a project, it helps me to go through things. So I hope you guys come to see me on Broadway, because, honey, I'm going to be giving you my all, okay? Outside of what I'm giving to my children, and they're doing well, by the way, if you wanted to know. Yeah, Keisha says, I love how you're still going on with your business. Love it, boss lady. Thank you, Keisha. Teresa says, I was so hoping that it wasn't true. I love you both, Kandi and Todd. So is he invited to the gathering? Yes, we are having Thanksgiving this week. Let me just say, no matter what Todd and I are going through, we are parents together. We are co-parenting together. We have beautiful children together. So we are trying to make this transition as smooth as it can possibly be for our kids. That is our main concern. So we are keeping it very friendly. I don't know if you guys saw. Well, I haven't really posted all my pictures from Blaze's birthday party, but we both were at the birthday party. We both was there to support our baby girl, and we are going to continue to keep that same good energy going for our kids. That is our goal. Okay? I hope you understand.
Kandi Burruss and Todd Tucker looked like Atlanta royalty on the surface, but behind the businesses, the babies, and the Bravo cameras, there were warning signs flashing like neon lights that almost everyone chose to ignore. When a woman who's built a multi-million-dollar empire from the ground up quietly removes a man's last name from her Instagram bio, stops wearing her wedding ring, and shows up to one of the biggest events of the year completely solo, that's not a spontaneous decision. That's the final chapter of a story that's been writing itself for over a decade. And if you've been paying attention, really paying attention, none of this should come as a shock. The truth is, some relationships are built on passion, shared values, and genuine chemistry. Others are built on opportunity, timing, and the kind of compromises that look fine in the beginning, but slowly eat away at the foundation until there's nothing left to stand on. Kandi and Todd's marriage has always fallen into that second category. And now, as the rumors swirl and the evidence mounts, we're watching the inevitable unfold in real time. So let's go back to where it all started, because the warning signs didn't just appear in 2025, they've been there since 2011. That was the year Todd Tucker walked onto the set of The Real Housewives of Atlanta as a production manager. He wasn't a cast member. He wasn't in the spotlight. He was behind the scenes, doing his job, handling logistics, managing cameras and lighting, and Kandi Burruss was already a star. She was a Grammy-winning songwriter, a successful businesswoman, and one of the most beloved housewives on the show. By all accounts, Todd wasn't even looking in Kandi's direction at first. It was actually Phaedra Parks who noticed him. She thought he was cute, articulate, down to earth. She saw potential, and she decided he would be perfect for Kandi. So Phaedra started playing matchmaker, pushing Todd to make a move, encouraging him to shoot his shot. But here's the thing. When someone has to be pushed towards you, when they need outside encouragement just to show interest, that tells you something important. It tells you they weren't drawn to you naturally. They weren't captivated. They didn't see you and think, I have to know this woman. They needed convincing. And that dynamic, that subtle imbalance, set the tone for everything that followed. The cast went on a trip to South Africa, and during that trip, Todd and Kandi finally bonded. They spent time together away from the cameras, away from the noise, and something clicked. When they returned to Georgia, they started sleeping together. But even then, Todd wasn't interested in anything serious. He was fine with the arrangement staying casual. No labels, no commitment, just two people enjoying each other's company without any strings attached. Kandi, on the other hand, wasn't wired that way. She's never been the type of woman to settle for situations or half-hearted arrangements. She's deliberate, she's intentional, and she knew exactly what she wanted. So she gave Todd an ultimatum. She told him straight up that she wasn't interested in adding another friend to her roster. Either they were going to build something real or they needed to end it. And Todd chose to go all in. But was it because he genuinely wanted a relationship with Kandi? Or was it because he recognized the opportunity in front of him? See, there was a complication. The cast wasn't allowed to date crew members. It was a professional boundary that kept the show running smoothly. So if Todd and Kandi were going to make their relationship work, if they were going to go public and be together openly, something had to give. And what gave was Todd's job. Kandi encouraged him to quit. She told him that if they were going to be together, they needed to do it the right way without sneaking around or hiding. And she made him a promise. She told him that because she loved him, because she was all in, they could build something together, an empire, a partnership, a future. In her own words, she believed there was nothing they couldn't accomplish as a team. So Todd resigned from his position, walked away from his steady paycheck, and stepped into Kandi's world. A world where she held all the cards, controlled all the resources, and had all the power. And almost immediately, the cracks started forming. As soon as their relationship went public, a woman named Mela came forward with a story that should have stopped everyone in their tracks. She claimed she was Todd's girlfriend until he left her to be with Kandi. Not an ex from years ago, not some distant fling. His actual girlfriend. According to Mala, she confronted Todd about his new relationship, pulled him aside for a conversation, and what he allegedly told her was jaw-dropping. She said Todd called Kandi a trick. He said he didn't like her music. He said she couldn't sing. He admitted her body was appealing, but said her face was just okay. Let that sink in for a moment. If those allegations are true, and Mala had no reason to fabricate such specific details, then Todd wasn't entering this relationship with love or admiration. He was entering it with calculation. Mala went further. She claimed Todd saw Kandi as his golden ticket into Atlanta's celebrity world, a way to rub shoulders with the elite, to build connections, to elevate his status. And even while he was playing the role of Kandi's devoted boyfriend, he was still in Mala's messages telling her he missed her. This is a man who was allegedly playing multiple angles at once, keeping his options open, hedging his bets. Not because he was madly in love, but because he was strategic. And yet, the relationship moved forward. By January 2013, Todd proposed to Kandi during a New Year's Day celebration. He presented her with a 2-carat diamond engagement ring in front of her friends, her co-stars, and her daughter Riley, who was 10 years old at the time. The media reported that Riley gave her blessing, but according to Mama Joyce, Kandi's mother, that wasn't the full story. Mama Joyce has never been one to hold her tongue. She's protective, opinionated, and deeply involved in her daughter's life. And during an episode of the show, she revealed something that should have given everyone pause. She said Riley confided in her that she didn't really like Todd. Riley didn't want to upset her mother, so she stayed quiet, but her true feelings were clear. A child's instincts are often more accurate than we give them credit for. They pick up on energy, on inconsistency, on the subtle ways people behave when they think no one's watching. And Riley's hesitation was a red flag that got swept under the rug in the rush toward the altar. Mama Joyce also had opinions about the engagement ring. She wasn't impressed. She felt it didn't reflect Kandi's worth, her status, her value. Kandi defended Todd, insisting it was the ring she picked out, but the criticism stung. So let's take stock of where we are. Phaedra had to push Todd to pursue Kandi. He only wanted casual hookups at first. An ex-girlfriend claimed he called Kandi names and said he was using her for access. Riley didn't actually like him. Mama Joyce questioned his intentions from day one. And they hadn't even made it to the wedding yet. As the wedding planning kicked into high gear, Kandi did what any intelligent, financially successful woman would do. She drafted a prenuptial agreement. And this wasn't just a standard prenup with generic terms. This was an ironclad document designed to protect everything Kandi had built. It stated clearly that if the marriage ended, Todd would receive $0 in alimony, not a dime, and he would have exactly 30 days to pack his belongings and leave her property. No negotiations, no extensions, no gray areas. Now, prenups are common among high net worth individuals, and there's nothing wrong with protecting your assets. But the severity of these terms raises an interesting question. Why would a man agree to something so one-sided? If you're marrying someone you love, someone you're building a future with, someone you believe will be your partner for life, wouldn't terms that harsh feel like a lack of faith? Like a message that says, I don't trust you and I'm planning for the day you disappoint me. There are two reasons a man signs a prenup like that. Either he's so deeply in love that he doesn't care about the imbalance because he truly believes it'll never come to that, or he recognizes that the benefits of being married to this woman, the lifestyle, the access, the opportunities outweigh the risk of walking away with nothing. For Todd, the path forward became clear when he realized what staying connected to Kandi could provide. So despite his reservations, despite feeling like the agreement was unfair, he agreed to sign. But he didn't sign right away. He dragged his feet. He expressed his discomfort. He let it be known that he felt the prenup was unjust, and that hesitation sent Mama Joyce into overdrive. She publicly called him an opportunist. She told him flat out that Kandi had lowered herself to be with him, and that a real man should be a provider, not someone being provided for. Todd tried to defend himself. He said he provided love, happiness, and stability. But in Mama Joyce's eyes, and in the eyes of many viewers, those intangibles didn't hold much weight when compared to Kandi's financial contributions. The tension escalated. During a scene at a bridal salon, Mama Joyce completely lost control and accused Kandi's assistant, Carmen, of sleeping with Todd. It was chaotic, uncomfortable, and deeply embarrassing for everyone involved. Then Mama Joyce took her grievances to the press. In an exclusive interview, she said she believed Todd would eventually take all of Kandi's money. She said she wanted nothing to do with the wedding planning. She called him manipulative and declared that she thought he was the wrong choice. She ended the interview with a statement that would prove hauntingly prescient. She said, "I pray to God I'm wrong about him." The drama didn't stop there. Mama Joyce feuded publicly with Todd's mother, Miss Sharon, creating a rift between the two families that never fully healed. Miss Sharon passed away from a stroke in December 2014, and the unresolved tension added another layer of pain to an already complicated situation. Despite all of this, despite the red flags waving so aggressively they could have been seen from space, Todd finally signed the prenup at the last minute. And on April 4, 2014, Kandi Burruss and Todd Tucker got married. The wedding was televised in a spin-off series called Kandi's Wedding. Mama Joyce attended, though her presence was tense and reluctant. The event was beautiful on the surface, elegant, expensive, picture perfect. But beneath the surface, the foundation was already crumbling. Just months after the wedding, Todd admitted to Kandi that he was still upset about the prenup. He felt disrespected. He felt like the terms implied he wasn't valued, that he was seen as a potential threat rather than a true partner. And that resentment manifested in the most intimate way possible. According to Kandi, their sex life came to a complete halt just 6 months after they got married. Now let's pause here and talk about what that really means, because this is where the psychological layers get deep. For many men, intimacy is directly tied to ego, power, and feeling desired. When Todd signed a prenup that essentially said, "You have no claim to me, my money, or my legacy if this ends," it may have triggered something subconscious in him. Even though he agreed to it, even though he knew Kandi's reasoning was sound, the power imbalance was undeniable. Kandi had the empire, she had the resources, she had the home, she had the spotlight, and Todd stepped into the marriage knowing that everything was hers. That reality can damage a man's sense of self in ways he won't articulate out loud. When a man feels emasculated, disempowered, or insecure in his position, he often withdraws physically, because intimacy requires vulnerability. It requires showing up fully, and if the emotional dynamic makes him feel small, pulling back becomes a way to reclaim control. On the other side, Kandi is a high-achieving, logic-driven woman who approaches life with structure and intention. But intimacy doesn't operate on contracts and spreadsheets. It requires emotional safety, trust, and balance. So when Todd hit the brakes, she felt it deeply. It wasn't just about physical needs, it was about the emotional distance, the silent punishment, the unspoken message that she had hurt him, and he was making her pay for it. This kind of unresolved tension, this quiet resentment that festers beneath the surface, doesn't just go away on its own. It grows, it spreads, and eventually it poisons everything. But despite the intimacy issues, Kandi wanted to expand their family. She was ready to have a baby with Todd. But there was a problem. They weren't having sex frequently enough to even try to conceive. She admitted as much to Phaedra during a candid conversation, expressing her frustration with the state of their physical relationship. Eventually, they managed to work through it enough to get pregnant, and in January 2016, they welcomed their son, Ace. 3 years later, in November 2019, they welcomed their daughter, Blay, via surrogate. But the arrival of Blay brought a whole new set of issues to the surface. In a video on Kandi's YouTube channel, Todd admitted that he felt disconnected from their daughter. He struggled to bond with her. And while some of that might be understandable given the surrogacy, the lack of a traditional pregnancy and birth experience, his behavior suggested something deeper. When a child is born through surrogacy, it can be harder for some parents to form that immediate attachment. Mothers often rely on physical closeness, skin-to-skin contact, and the hormonal shifts that come with pregnancy and childbirth to build that bond. But in this case, Kandi didn't carry the baby, so the entire process felt more detached, more clinical. For a man who already felt insecure in his role as a husband, who already felt overshadowed in his own household, the lack of a natural bonding moment with his newborn daughter may have intensified his feelings of being unnecessary. And instead of leaning into his family, instead of working through the discomfort, Todd leaned away. Kandi called him out publicly for spending too much time outside the house. Less than a week after Blay was born, Todd went clubbing 2 nights in a row. On the day after Thanksgiving, he stayed out until sunrise. When confronted, Todd argued that he went out because Kandi wasn't giving him enough attention. But this wasn't just about wanting affection. This was about needing to feel important, needing to feel seen, needing validation that he mattered in a family where he felt increasingly irrelevant. Psychologically, avoidance is what people do when they feel overwhelmed, powerless, or unseen. Todd wasn't getting reassurance from his marriage. He wasn't bonded to his baby. He wasn't grounded in his identity as a father. So he defaulted to the environment where he did feel validated. Nightlife, clubs, attention from strangers, temporary escapes that made him feel significant even if it was hollow and fleeting. But the problems didn't stop there. Kandi also expressed concerns about a condo Todd owned in New Jersey. According to Todd, he had purchased the property with an ex-girlfriend before he met Kandi, but the fact that he still owned it, still visited it, still used it as a home base whenever he traveled to New York made Kandi uncomfortable. She told her co-stars that whenever Todd went to New York, he stayed at the New Jersey condo and partied with his friends, and she admitted on camera that she sometimes worried about him cheating. Those weren't baseless fears. According to Portia Williams, another Real Housewives cast member, there were allegations that Todd was hooking up with women behind Kandi's back, and to hide his identity, he reportedly used the alias Marvin. Whether those allegations were true or not, the fact that they existed, the fact that they circulated among people in Kandi's inner circle speaks to a larger pattern of distrust and disconnection. As their business empire continued to expand, as they opened new ventures and took on new projects, Kandi began to realize something painful. Their relationship had become more business than pleasure. During a filmed therapy session, she admitted point blank that their intimacy had faded. In her words, they weren't having the kind of passionate, connected sex they used to have. The fire was gone. The distance felt permanent. Todd, meanwhile, had his own grievances. He felt unseen in a completely different way. He accused Kandi of not making enough time for their family. He said that while he had quit his job and rearranged his entire life for her, she hadn't made the same sacrifices in return. To him, everything in their world revolved around Kandi's schedule, Kandi's career, Kandi's priorities, and Todd was just orbiting around it all, supporting her vision while his own needs went unmet. He also admitted something that cut to the core of their dynamic. He said he took on a string of new businesses, including their trucking company, because he felt pressure to prove himself, pressure to appease Kandi, pressure to satisfy Mama Joyce, pressure to win over Kandi's fans who constantly questioned his value. He said, "I became a business entity that makes a lot of money. Everybody accepts the money guy. He's good, he's the best, but I'm not happy. That confession is devastating in its honesty. Because what it reveals is that Todd spent years trying to earn his place in a relationship where he never felt fully accepted. He tried to prove his worth through financial success, through building businesses, through showing the world that he wasn't just Kandi's husband, he was somebody in his own right. But no amount of money or business ventures could fill the emotional void, because the real issue was never about what Todd could provide materially. It was about whether he and Kandi were truly compatible on a deeper level. And the answer increasingly seemed to be no. So how did they try to fix it? They turned to one of the most misguided solutions a struggling couple can attempt. They started inviting other women into their bedroom. Now, threesomes aren't inherently destructive. For some couples, they can be a fun, consensual way to explore fantasies and add excitement. But those are couples with strong foundations, clear communication, and mutual trust. For a marriage that's already struggling, for a relationship where intimacy is dying and resentment is festering, bringing a third person into the bedroom is like trying to resuscitate a patient who's already flatlining. It might create a temporary spike of energy, a brief surge of adrenaline, but it doesn't heal the underlying issues. It just distracts from them. As recently as November 2025, Kandi doubled down on their lifestyle, saying publicly that there's nothing wrong with threesomes in a marriage and revealing that they'd had one within the last 6 months. On the surface, that might sound like a couple that's sexually adventurous and confident in their dynamic, but when you zoom out and look at the full picture, it reads very differently. It reads like two people desperately trying to salvage intimacy by any means necessary. Two people who know the spark is gone and are hoping that adding something new, something taboo, will bring it back. But you can't fix a broken foundation by rearranging the furniture. Which brings us to November 17th, 2025. Kandi appeared at BravoCon, one of the biggest events of the year for Bravo stars and fans, and she showed up alone. No Todd, no wedding ring. Fans immediately noticed. They also noticed that she had removed Tucker from her Instagram name. For years, her handle had included his last name, a public declaration of their union, but now it was gone. She hadn't posted any recent photos of him since October, and while she did comment on one of Todd's recent pictures of him with their children, his social media presence had shifted dramatically. His posts were giving single dad energy. Solo shots with the kids, no couple photos. No affectionate captions, just a man presenting himself as a devoted father, conspicuously absent from the role of husband. At the end of the day, none of this is shocking. The signs that Todd was never fully locked in have been flashing for over a decade. The foundation of their relationship was never built on mutual pursuit, organic chemistry, or balanced power. It was built on opportunity, timing, and a series of compromises that looked manageable at first, but slowly eroded the core of what a marriage needs to survive. Kandi deserves a love that chooses her without hesitation. A partner who doesn't need to be pushed, who doesn't resent her success, who doesn't withdraw when he feels threatened. And Todd deserves to find peace outside of the pressure cooker he's been living in. A life where he doesn't have to constantly prove himself, where he isn't orbiting someone else's empire, where he can rebuild his identity on his own terms. If they really are heading toward divorce, and all signs point in that direction, it's not a tragedy. It's a release. Sometimes the healthiest thing two people can do is acknowledge that the relationship has run its course, that they gave it their best shot, but the foundation was never solid enough to last. They can co-parent their children with respect and maturity. They can heal individually. They can let go of the resentment and the pressure and the constant scrutiny. And maybe, just maybe, once the dust settles and the noise fades, they'll both find what they were really looking for all along. Because the truth is, this marriage was holding on by a thread for years. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let that thread break.